I just sent you the link. You have a look at that.
Yeah.
Just give it a quick look. Put those in the order,
Okay.
and I'll send that to
Malcolm, Mike. Yeah.
That's the one that
I don't.
I spent Addis.
So. Did you say? Oh, here it is.
Yeah, for these 4 slides, I mean, I'll be under 10 minutes from.
I mean, there's a lot of reading to do, so I would say you're probably gonna be a bit longer.
Okay,
Well, I don't know. I
Okay.
just go slowly too.
okay,
It's like people have a hard time understanding. And like you can kind of break the cadence of reading it sometimes, like
for sure.
makes it more engaging.
Expedite. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'll read through these. Should I add anything to the reference documents?
And I would just say like we've reviewed all this stuff, like,
Yeah.
and we're continuing to assess how it relates and integrates into a project.
Okay.
I think what the fuck?
Right, so I got it from one. I put it, and I put a slide.
Okay, so you have that.
Yeah, so 3 more slides. We don't need to. But the one is just going to show these functions. Here's the tab.
Oh, I see. That's introduced.
Okay. So when you're presenting, I'm going to look at the chat. When I present, you look at the chat.
Still log to it. Yeah.
Yeah, but then once it it's going to be a goal.
Well, yeah, maybe I'll make it a document. Save it in the folder, like just populate as to go somehow, but I don't know, that seems above and beyond what's possible. Short of having another
Yeah,
moderator.
I think it's like just keep an eye on it as we go, and then I guess recording that as well. But
Yeah.
if anything important comes up, like just
Okay,
just
I'll
like-
address them if I can.
yeah, if you see anything come up, just that's you think it's good, just reference it and say that
Are
we'll.
we gonna tell them to hold off until the end though, for questions?
Well, I'm gonna say, like I added this slide and I said, let's just see, there's a trillion broken files in here. Let's try all. This one says to say like you can during the presentation, please feel free to pose any comments or questions through your chat function on the bottom bar. And at the end, after we've gone through some comments that we've received through the survey and just from online questions, feel free to raise your hand.
Yeah, okay.
If your voice isn't heard today, please feel free to submit your questions to the project website as listed on the invitation.
And Malcolm's gonna put together something distribute after, once I give all the written answers, he's gonna put something up there.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know.
I think that's key, that people are like,
For us.
they just don't wanna know it's getting thrown down a black hole.
Well, that's the second session too, right? It's for us to incorporate it in the second session. Okay, I'm just gonna read these quickly.
Yep.
So are you able to sign it before it's on? Just take a look. You waiting for me to sign it? Okay. I guess started 10 minutes too.
So I can join as an attendee, but then you level me up somehow.
Yeah, I thought I already named you as one, but I'll let it, yeah, just say I assign you as a.
Okay, so I'm joining as an attendee.
Okay. Like.
Are you in?
Yeah, I'm just waiting a few minutes to start it.
I want to get in. I'm not sure if I should be an attendee or what.
Okay, I'm starting it.
Unmute myself.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Can you see me too?
Yep. I can see you fine.
Okay, so the way it works is I can see you as well.
Okay. So I guess it's just us. I mean, if I take
There's-
these off, I can't really hear anything.
Yeah, there's already some participants rolling in. We have Carolyn, Jan, Joan. So we'll give everybody about 10 minutes. They can all already hear us, Patrick.
Okay.
And then we'll get started.
So we only have one poll. We only have one poll. So
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. We're about to get started here. We're just seeing a few more people trickle in on the attendees list. So we'll give them just another minute.
Right now, we're at 52 participants, just so people know. Just so we have audio capabilities, can you guys confirm that you can hear me in the chat log? Perfect, thank you.
Great, so I think we'll get started now. It seems like some of you are learning the functions of the meeting and the Zoom call, which is great. We're going to touch on that a little bit before we get into the presentation. But first of all, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Daniel Wojcik. I'm the managing partner of the Venton Group of Ottawa. We are the architects on this project. I'm joined this evening by my partner, Patrick Rossiter.
Evening, everyone.
So before we got started, we'd just like to express our gratitude for being able to work on this project with you all. We understand how important this project is to your community, and we're very excited to be the architect named on the job. We are totally committed to this consultation process and delivering an excellent project to the community. And we're not sure what that's going to be yet, but that's the point of these public consultation meetings that we're hosting. This is the first of two sessions, and we'll touch on the greater process as well. And we just want to emphasize that these sessions will be respectful and inclusive. We're here to hear everybody's voice, and we want to incorporate the important comments and questions that we received through this process. Now onto the nuts and bolts of this evening's presentation. This is our first fully digital public consultation. So we've tested the process out, tested the platform out. We use this software quite a bit, but if there are any glitches, please have patience. So we're dealing with technology. We'll hold the questions till the end. There is a chat function that's available that Patrick and I have already initiated, where you can pose questions through the process that we will record and manually respond to after the presentation. If we can't get to all the questions this evening, we'll make sure to take some time to respond to them all and post them on the project website. So just before we get started, some of you may not be very familiar with the software. There's a banner at the bottom of your screen. It doesn't have all of these pieces, but the important ones that you'll need to see are chat, which is a chat function where you can chat and add comments and questions as we go along, which will be recorded, as I mentioned. And then at the end of the presentation, there's a raise hand function. So if you'd like to pose a question when we open the floor for questions, please press the raise hand question, and we'll do our best to address all the questions that we can this evening. Again, this is a little bit challenging because of the context and the format in which we're presenting, but we are committed to answering every question, whether it be this evening or later on. I'd also like to emphasize that this our second public consultation meeting. We're hoping can be an in-person session outdoors later this summer, because we would much rather be in a situation where we can see and connect with all of you and have more meaningful dialogue with you as well. So because of the current circumstances of COVID-19, we're forced to present online like this, and we're going to do the best we can, but rest assured that we will, if we're able to, we'll reach out in a different format later this summer. So I'm going to turn it over to Patrick now, who's going to present the preliminary kind of groundwork, where we are today, and our schedule and our kind of roadmap for the process of this project, which you'll all be invited to join and follow along. So I'll turn it over to you, Patrick.
Great, thank you, Dan. So project introduction for you guys. Plus VG Architects was engaged in winter 2020 by the Township of Rideau Lakes to lead the Portland Municipal Hub project. The Portland Municipal Hub will play a pivotal role in the community for so many community members. Plus VG recognizes the importance of the proposed Portland Municipal Hub and understand that community projects like this positively contribute to the character, sustainability, and vitality of their surrounding communities. So now we're seeking your input. Please join us in these 2 separate public consultation sessions to share your thoughts and help shape the design of this important community building. Using these sessions and an online survey, our team will gather public feedback in an accessible, inclusive, and respectful format. This collaborative process with the community will add and refine project goals and will ensure that the new Portland Municipal Hub is tailored to meet your community's needs today and well into the future. So regarding our design objectives, these are the principles that we will use to inform our process. Our goal is to design a sustainable facility informed by your diverse community needs. So we do this by having guiding principles. Our first is put people first. Design spaces for people based on their needs. This is absolutely critical to having a successful project. Our second guiding principle, examine the context, respect the history and heritage of place. Our third guiding principle, design spaces to be flexible and suitable for multiple uses, which is now even more critical due to the constraints of the pandemic. Our fourth guiding principle is to create inviting and universally accessible spaces. And our fifth guiding principle is to employ sustainable design techniques and technologies, as we are responsible for the environment. And so if we can do what we can now, it'll make a big difference in the future.
Thanks, Patrick. I also like to add to this that we're coming to the table this evening and through this entire process with open minds. We're not presupposing anything in terms of the design, the layout, the function of the building, but we're here to listen and understand what the priorities and objectives are for the community. So that being said, Patrick will just give a quick agenda of the slides and the process that we're going to be tonight.
So tonight we have our project introduction. So we've kind of just briefly gone through that. The next we'll go through the public consultation process, which is capturing previous and current public comments and concerns. We're going to go on to the Portland area analysis to take a look at the map of the village and the surrounding area to see key landmarks and the location of the potential sites amongst the local context. We have site analysis work for both sites, the Portland Hall site and the Gallagher site. So we're going to go through both of those in detail with you. Then we have a site comparison exercise. We're going to allow you guys to voice your opinions about the pros and cons of these 2 different sites. Then we're going to take a look at the building space uses and how they overlap with regards to the library, to the hall, and to the municipal aspects. We're going to look at those spaces and see what kind of merging can occur. And at the end, we're going to look at 2 preliminary concepts that are essentially bubble diagrams just sitting on the site. So we'll look at those.
And I know we've already received some questions about the design concepts through this process. So this evening, we're showing very preliminary work in order to facilitate a site selection process and just to start to demonstrate how we're thinking about the project. As we proceed further through this process in our second public consultation session, you'll see more options that integrate the comments that we hear tonight. And they'll also more closely resemble architectural design of a building. So please don't be discouraged if you think that we're showing preliminary diagrams tonight, because again, we didn't want to presuppose anything or go too far ahead without first understanding all of this important foundational information that we're going to get out of tonight's session.
So a rundown of the public consultation process. We did have a project startup in April of 2021. And part of this was an assessment of the current facilities, the existing library, the existing Portland Community Hall, and the existing municipal offices and chantry. And so there was a process of documentation and analysis of the sites and the surrounding context. After this, there was a council meeting review. We then launched the online survey, which we have some initial results of we received today. So we'll be able to talk about those. And here we are tonight with the virtual public house. So we're hoping to cover the building uses, the site selection, and as Dan noted, the preliminary space diagrams we've created. And we're kind of looking forward to the comments we can get for all of this subject matter from you guys. Post this open house, there'll be another council meeting for review. In July, mid-July, we'll be closing the online survey. We'll gather that information, we'll consolidate it, and we'll make sure that it's presented to the public so everyone can see general consensus and ideas that came from the surveys. The second public house will have kind of more going on. Hopefully this will be an in-person, as Dan noted. It'll be in-person open house hosted outdoors on the selected project site. We'll have presentation panels with information and graphics indicating general direction and progress of project. So we're hopeful this can be an in-person, but we will keep our fingers crossed and we will see what occurs. So after that consultation, there will be another scheduled council meeting for review. At that point, decisions will be made and there'll be it will finish in August of 2021 with presentation of a completed design. Next slide, Dan. So we have carefully reviewed past planning and engineering studies related to the Village of Portland and the redevelopment of the Portland Hall. There was a lot of work done previously, a lot of ideas, a lot of documentation. We are continuing to go through this material as it's going to influence the outcome. Some of these documents are listed here with the Portland Visioning Exercise. We have the report for the Municipal Services Committee, Portland Hall Review, Strategic Plan of 2015, the Portland Harbor Pro Forma, and the Portland Harbor Redevelopment Plan.
So all to say is that we recognize the amount of work and thought that has already been dedicated to developing community plans and even looking at the Village of Portland more acutely. So we're taking all of that important work into account as a foundation for our study as well. So this slide just highlights our understanding and some, there's a lot of important planning documents and there's a lot of planning strategy, political strategy surrounding growth and future of the township. But there's also these human factors that we've realized through our visits to Portland and our research about the township of Rideau Lakes. So we understand that there are multiple uses right now for the existing Portland Hall. We have some larger functions at different times of year. There's a Skate the Lake festival. We also have many concerts and performances, various recreational programs in the hall. And then in the village, the broader context of the village, we understand that different times of year it comes to life. So in the wintertime, we have a huge outdoor gathering with Skate the Lake. And then in the summertime, there's a tremendous amount of boating related tourism. And a lot of people coming from outside of the village. So one of the constraints for the projects that we've heard is that there's a huge amount of traffic in the summertime. So that we're looking at how our project can mitigate some of these concerns. On a grander scheme of things, we understand that the richness of the culture, the heritage of place, and there's a really palpable tension between the heritage and the future. And so we hope to capture that in our project as well. As part of our analysis, we always do a mapping exercise just to understand the local landmarks, some of the environmental concerns in terms of sun path and sun orientation, and different environmental aspects in terms of prevailing winds during different times of the year. Portland itself is a village context, so it's very sensitive in terms of its scale, and that's going to be something that really drives our project and our design. For such a small village, there's a huge amount of resources and exterior or outdoor amenities that certainly come to life in the summer. So here we have Hannah Park, we have a beach. On the existing Portland Hall site, there's a playground, and then the Gallagher property is kind of an outdoor public space as well. There's boat launches all over town, and then there's public wharfs. So as part of our process, we're carefully documenting the activities, and depending on the trajectory of the project and the site selection, we're going to try and tap into these and create meaningful connections between our sites, our selected site, and these amenities. This project also acts as the amalgamation of several amenities on site, where we have a library on Highway 15 and the existing hall, and potentially municipal offices from Chantry's could be all amalgamated onto one site to form what we're calling the municipal hub. So moving forward, we're going to take a look at the two sites in a little bit more detail tonight. And we're going to launch a poll to get your opinions about which site or which characteristics of the site are more important, or most important, sorry. So through this process, it can be really difficult to determine which site is more suitable for a project. We want to be inclusive in that process. So what we often do is create a site selection matrix, which I'll touch on a little bit later. So that matrix has qualitative and quantitative information, and it allows us to mark one site or another as a positive or negative or neutral. And by comparing those as a ledger, we can sometimes inform a site selection. So Patrick and I visited the site with township residents and staff, some township residents and staff a few weeks ago, and we were able to visit the existing hall site. So we understand the condition of the existing hall. And we also understand on this site, on the Portland Hall site, adjacencies to Hannah Park, the beach, some of the playground amenities on site kind of strengthen its relationship to municipal hub building. What else is there to say? There's also a number of mature trees on site, which depending on the size of the facility could be impacted as a negative factor. But we also see that there's strong connections to existing municipal facilities just across the street. These are site diagrams represent kind of the site boundary, has the parcels of all the adjacent properties as well. And then the red diagram or boundary represents kind of the setbacks as per the zoning for a building area. So this would not include parking, but as per the zoning, these are the setbacks that are required for a built area. So you see similarly on the next side, for the Gallagher property, we have a similar diagram here. So the Gallagher property has an existing municipal building that's abandoned on it. We see that there's also mature trees bordering the property and some remnants of an existing wall along the property's edge. There's adjacency. We're quite close to the other amenities here. You see Hannah Park again. But there's adjacencies to the village wharf here across the street, and it's closely connected to the boat launch down Water Street here as well. We see that this site offers an opportunity. There's existing parking on the site, which would have to be restructured, but it offers an opportunity because there's a large swath of open, undeveloped land on the site. The building that we're showing here, as many as you will notice, is no longer there on the property, but this one building remains. So those are very qualitative aspects of these sites. This is our site selection matrix. So please disregard these. These are our general impressions of the sites as the consulting team and from our visits and our research. But right now we'd like to open this up to you in order to comment on the two sites. So what you'll see here are we've created a list of features, site features, which could either be a positive or a negative attribute for each site. So we'll open up a poll now.
Dan, before you launch it, I
Yeah.
would just like to bring up one item we may have missed on the
Yeah,
Portland
sure.
Hall site, which is the existing septic field system. I don't
Yeah,
know if that was brought up. So on that site, there is an existing bit of infrastructure there. I think people should be aware of. I'm unsure its exact placement without the drawing in front of me, but
yeah, that's a good point, Patrick. Thanks for bringing that up. So there is an existing septic field behind the hall in this green space here, which has been studied and deemed to have capacity and to be in good shape. We may or may not be able to use some of these infrastructures as part of our project, but it could be a benefit to us in the future for sure. As part of our project, we'll also look for efficiencies like that to bring the budget down. So I'm going to launch this poll. And everybody should be able to see this on their page now. So for the first question, we are asking, between the two sites, which site offers better adjacencies to existing public spaces? The Portland Hall site or the Gallagher site? So I join everybody to click in. The second question is, which site has better existing parking or has access to a better suitable area for parking? The Portland Hall site, the Gallagher site. Our third question is, which site is better suited regarding lot size and developable area? So both sites are quite similar in area, but will offer different configurations for development. Our fourth question, I'm just noticing there's not very many people participating. Okay, here we got some uptake now. Okay, there we go. Our fourth question is, which site is better suited regarding being adjacent to residential neighbors? So which site has more risk potentially with relation to the adjacency to neighbors in terms of disrupting or disturbing neighbors? Which site could potentially require more tree removal? On the Portland Hall site, we have a swath of mature trees in the middle. On the Gallagher property, we have mature trees that are flanking the street line, which could potentially be retained. So I'm seeing that some people are finding this difficult. We'll go over our assessment afterwards as well. But this is just so everybody has the opportunity to give their opinion. Which site has existing site services and infrastructure to support our project? Which site has better site frontage? So in terms of its location, its frontage adjacent to other properties. Number 8 is, which site has better daylight and view potentials? So from which site would we have better exposure to daylight throughout the day, which is on the south, and potentially better views towards the water? Which site has better vehicular access? So which site is more easily found from a car upon entering the village and easier to access? And I saw somebody ask about flooding. So this question, which site is better suited regarding the height above the water level and the height above the water table. So I'm going to leave this open, and this is just to record opinion. And I'm going to explain sort of our position or our take on some of these as well. So we deemed the Portland Hall site to be have a stronger adjacency to public spaces because there are public amenities directly across the street. So Hannah Park and the beach really tie into the type of programming that we might see in a municipal hub building. So we thought that was a plus for the Portland Hall site. Existing parking, we thought was neutral. Both site has capacity for parking. The Gallagher property actually has an existing parking lot on it, which would need to be resurfaced and expanded for the purposes of our project, but so does the Portland Hall site. So we thought that was a neutral. Lot size and developable area. The Gallagher property has, if we're to treat it with the same zoning parameters, has slightly larger developable area, and the lot size is slightly larger. Adjacency to residential neighbors. We thought that because of the shape of the Portland Hall site, we could potentially, given the setbacks, move the building further away from the adjacent neighbors. Whereas on the Gallagher property, we are pretty tightly packed in here, and it would be difficult in order to achieve that same goal. Required tree removal. We thought that the Portland Hall site would be more adversely impacted given the number of mature trees in the center of the site. Whereas on the Gallagher property, the trees are kind of flanking the property, could probably be retained as part of our project. Existing site surfaces and infrastructure, which I see everybody's picking up on as well. The Portland Hall site we deemed to potentially have a benefit, as there is a existing septic field and some other amenities on site already. Site frontage, the Gallagher property we felt had a stronger frontage and views of the water, so which ties into the daylight and views as well. We're less obscured on this property, and we have a longer frontage to help with the daylighting for the new facility. Vehicular access felt is pretty equal, because the properties are only within a short walking distance of one another. An important factor, though, we felt was that the Gallagher property benefits from a higher elevation above water, which would be beneficial in the event of a deep excavation on the Portland Hall site. We would have to design our foundations perhaps differently than on the Gallagher property. So this is our weighting, and through our process, we've found that the Gallagher property is favorable. Doesn't mean that that's the trajectory that we're going on. We're going to close our poll and take the results and feed them back to everybody at the end of the presentation. This is a difficult, I mean, you see a lot of people saying that, this should be based on fact and not opinion in the comments. But to be fair, there are some very kind of hardline quantitative figures that we can draw a line in the sand and evaluate that way. But some of it is, we want the input of the township residents, and their opinions are valid and should be heard. So we'll leave this, and we understand that this is a difficult piece of the process, but we wanted to open the polling, hear your comments and questions, and we'll respond to them accordingly. So moving on, we have our, I'll hand it over to Patrick here. So
Yeah, I can go through this. Yeah. So we made this Venn diagram with the 3 programs in mind, just so we can show their individual needs and some opportunity for overlapping where you could have shared space And it could be some savings in a spatial sense there with these combined programs. So the three aspects of the municipal office, the library, and the Portland Hall. I'll go through, I'll go library, Portland Hall, and then municipal office. So the library, we have the circulation desk, we have a small staff area, book stacks, computer stations. With the library, it could share space with the Portland Hall with a large meeting space. It could share space with the municipal office in the sense of private meeting rooms and storage. So for the Portland Hall, we have fitness classes, other types of classes like Tai Chi, this existing activities, 100-person dinner service, 200-person audience capacity. We have harbor master's offices, and we have food bank, clothing co-op, and other social services. So again, with the library, we could share the large meeting space with municipal offices. This can be shared with regards to a council chamber for those types of public events, public meetings. And lastly, we have the municipal office. So there's space for 21 full-time employees, a public service counter for addressing things like tax and such. We have building services department, and we have a public record storage. So with these three in mind, if we overlap them all, we can have all three sharing certain amenities with all these programs together. We could share one entrance lobby. Small meeting spaces can be shared by all of them. Kitchen for all, washrooms. And with those two elements of the washroom and kitchen, there's the opportunity to have exterior access and overlapping with interior. So on the right, we have a few images we've just selected to indicate kind of the scale and scope finishes of similar projects, similar scale projects. So these are color coded. They'll go along with the bubble diagrams that are following up. So for orange, we have the library being referenced, spaces for learning and studying. For blue, we're referencing the hall for spaces gathering, socializing, and meeting. And for purple, we have the office spaces, spaces for working, administrating, and collaborating. So with regards to these programs, speaking of where we place things on site, the office would be the one that is the quietest, the least loud, so to speak, the least needing of kind of streetscape interaction, whereas the library and the hall are more public activities. Those will be more the face of the building and kind of the louder aspects where we'd be closer to the road.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. Certainly, like Patrick's saying, that we can achieve a division in the facility in order to separate the public and the private functions in a meaningful way. I also understand that in the community, there's a bit of a division in terms of the desire to have a new municipal office on this site. To that respect, I'd like to highlight that the township has engaged a third party to do a building condition assessment of their chantry offices, which will be under review as part of this project. Patrick and myself were on site at the chantry offices a few weeks ago to have a meeting with township staff, upon which we did a survey of the building ourselves. So our initial observations of the building were that it's been retrofitted into an office. It's not necessarily a function fit for that, for the municipal office function. It also appears to be at the end of its life cycle, which the condition assessment will reveal in more detail. So we'll be able to have a pretty objective view of the cost of renovating or reusing that facility. But I think also what's important, and what we see in some of our current projects, municipal projects, is that by adding and incorporating public uses into a municipal office facility, we certainly start to make more of a nucleus for the community, or our hub, as we're calling it for this project. And we start to invigorate that municipal office with other functions, and it creates sort of a very rich meeting point for the community. The office may seem like an extraneous function at this point in time, But like Patrick is saying, there's potential ways of positioning it on the site in order to mitigate some of the concerns that we've heard already through some questions. So the Venn diagram here is really illustrating what are the common factors that we can share between all of these functions. The meeting spaces, the outdoor spaces, washrooms and kitchens are all common. And I think the hall really is going to be at the heart of this project. Some of these jobs are our own projects. So this is Pakenham Library, a similar scale branch library to what we would be proposing for this project, maybe a little bit bigger. This is a Brockville St. Lawrence College library that we completed a few years ago. We're showing this because of the nature of the common spaces that we have here. So these are glass walls, so that's very public space, but also offers privacy. We've offered many of those through the space, which have become very popular with users. This is a Queen School of Business. So a lot of these projects don't necessarily share the same function, but the spirit of the spaces are things that we'd like to bring into this project itself. So here we have a space for congregating or for presentations or for classes, but it's more of a public space that connects, it's the tissue that connects all of the other parts of the building. And then we have just some more generic municipal spaces from our projects that we've completed in the past. So we see that there's a lot of overlap potential between a lot of these functions. So I think we're missing I just want to jump ahead before we show you so we're a little bit out of sequence here. So these are some of the goals that we want to bring into our new design for the building in Portland. Sustainable development is really important principle that guides most of our work. So these are some of the key points that we will be implementing or observing through the course of this project. So energy efficiency and carbon reduction are always important to ourselves as designers, is very important to us. So we're trying to create a rigorous and highly efficient building envelope to keep the heat and the cool in, but also employ building systems that don't necessarily emit a bunch of carbon into the atmosphere, whether it be directly through the building itself or from the energy sources that are fueling the building. The second one is a very simple principle that is often overlooked in terms of sustainability, but it's durable design and longevity. So simply by the decision of which materials we choose can significantly impact the longevity of a project, of our building, reduce the operating costs and the maintenance costs for that building, and just act as an overall benefit for the building itself in the future. The third piece is sustainable economic development and social equality. So this idea doesn't necessarily impact or affect the architecture of the building itself, but it's an important foundational idea for any project. So the idea, and we're talking about it today in terms of the value of or the life cycle of the Chantry office, and what economic benefit there might be to implementing a new municipal office in the hub rather than building a separate facility. So those are the kinds of questions that we want to ask in terms of sustainable economic development, whether the project can be supported economically throughout the process of designing it. So in terms of this, we have several third-party checks for cost estimating to make sure that we're on budget and on goal. And the second part is social equality. So we want all of our projects and buildings to be universally accessible, and we mean that not only in the sense of physical mobility and accessibility, but also just to be totally inclusive for everybody in the community. We want a place for everybody to come and feel invited, and we feel like we can achieve that through architecture. The fourth piece is the material choices and construction methods selection. So by choosing different types of building materials and building construction, we can certainly have an impact on the sustainability of a facility. For example, if we choose to use wood products in our building, engineered wood products, those products act as a carbon sink themselves, and it's choices like that which come back to the economic sustainable development can really drive the sustainability of a project. Another important point is the indoor environmental quality. So we want to have healthy buildings. A lot of that will have to do with the solar orientation, the ventilation system, lots of mechanical aspects, but it's important that we provide not only what's acceptable by code, but we go above and beyond in terms of providing a healthy indoor environmental quality for our building users and visitors. Those are simple as things as daylight and views can really elevate a user's experience of a building. Finally, which is especially important in this context, is waste reduction and site protection. Waste reduction is always pivotal in all of our projects. Specifications are written in such a way that preclude contractors from engaging in wasteful behavior on the site. We try to recycle whatever we can, keep everything on site that we can possibly keep on site, and reuse it in either the landscape or in the building in some way. Site protection is another one that has come up in some of the questions that we've received. So through the proper planning of construction, we can incorporate different types of simple technology like silt fencing, drop mud mats, and other simple parameters for the contractor to observe that will prevent harmful runoff into the watershed, air pollution through dust. We can also have factors to mitigate noise through the construction process. These are in general some of the really important characteristics that will be implemented into our project. We have it as an example here, some visuals of other projects, but this is one that's very near and dear to our heart that's almost complete. It's the Kingston East Community Center. This is a carbon net zero building, so it emits no carbon into the atmosphere. We were able to use a ground source heat exchange geothermal system to offset heating and cooling loads. We have a photovoltaic solar array on the roof to offset all of the building's electrical consumption. And then beyond that, we were just implementing high efficiency mechanical systems that are all electrified in order to, again, not emit carbon into the atmosphere. And then the building selection materials, masonry, are sustainable in terms of their longevity. So this is an example of a great project where we were able to achieve our goals in terms of our sustainability through the design all the way to the delivery of the final product. I'll let Patrick touch on this one because this is also about creating a sustainable environment in the facility, but it's a little bit different than the previous slide.
Yeah, so as we know, Portland is an outdoorsy place, an outdoorsy community. People are always interacting with the water and green space in general. So we understand that we want to create a building or design that captures this interaction. And one way to do this is to have interior spaces that blend into exterior spaces. This can be especially useful for assembly events, especially when there's restrictions on how many people you can have inside, with the pandemic being one issue. This can be a way to seasonally kind of open a certain aspect of the building up and have it more closed in colder months. And this can improve the functionality of a building. You can have better airflow situations, for example, for shedding heat. And one idea that came to mind was a kind of semi-covered or covered outside space, exterior space, where it's a little more, it can handle different weather situations. It just doesn't have to be sunny and a perfect day to enjoy it. So there's opportunities with both of these sites to have aspects of the building that can open and shut or be more open than usual, to capture the water views or the cool air coming from the lake. And again, just some of the larger trees on these sites, just having them close to the property. These are great resources, and it's just, there's opportunity on both sides for this type of design.
Yeah, these outdoor spaces act as an extension of the facility itself, and if we're able to achieve something maybe similar to that we see on this slide for the hall, the capacity can grow significantly in the summer months without actually incurring a lot of additional costs for building area. So these are ideas that we're trying to explore in this project, not only for those pragmatic reasons, but also because of, like Patrick said, the really important connection to the natural environment that we witnessed in Portland, and the beauty that we saw and of views overlooking the lake. So these are just some of the foundational ideas behind how we started to come up with some of these very preliminary concepts. And so these are not set in stone. We're not trying to predetermine what the shape of the building will be, but like Patrick said, we're starting to analyze kind of critical adjacencies and separations of different spaces and have a potential scale of some of these volumes on the site, which is a moving target for us as we're still forming a program with space sizes with the stakeholders. But for the Portland Hall site, we're showing an idea of occupying the space down towards Water Street, using this blank space up by Campbell at Perth for parking, which it's not very useful in terms of developable area, but very useful in terms of parking. And then having sort of a main lobby that can be accessed either off water or from the parking, from accessible parking, that starts to divide the spaces up in a meaningful way. So in this option, we see that the Portland Hall, the new hall, would stand on its own and occupy this really significant corner in the village. And like we highlighted in our last slide, would be flanked by these outdoor spaces, whether they could be, here or on the side or anywhere. In all cases, we're trying to push the sort of more private office functions towards the rear of the site, that they don't really need to have this kind of very prominent location on the corners. But we're also looking at, how this lobby piece here can start to be the connective tissue for all of the other spaces. The lobby in itself can act as a venue for different public events, but it really acts as the kind of main boulevard through the building itself. And the sort of key interstitial public space that the user of the building will sort of see upon arrival. We're flanking some of these spaces with outdoor washrooms, outdoor kitchens, which could be connected to outdoor spaces. I saw already, in the comments that somebody said that, it'd be really great to have that public washroom close to the Hannah Park and the beach just across the street. So these are, this is a viable solution for this site, and we'll continue to develop these in cooperation with the township and the stakeholders, and incorporating the comments that we receive on them today. So for the second site, we're showing a different option. The footprint is slightly smaller because we're proposing 2-story volumes. So in order to mitigate the impact of having the building spread over the facility, we're showing this option as a 2-story volume. So here along Water Street, again, we have a lobby that's accessible, that we can tap into all of the other functions of the building. Similarly to the proposal on the other site, or diagram for the other site. In this instance, we're showing sort of outdoor spaces flanking the library and the hall, and this one could potentially indicate sort of an outdoor covered space like Patrick was showing on the previous slide. What we saw is maybe an added benefit to this site would be that we could separate parking for staff on one end of the site and have a small parking lot for visitors to the hall on the other end of the site. It could be more of a meaningful division of those two functions. On the second level here, you can see those parking spots you were talking about. We're also proposing, if the Gallagher site is selected, to push all of the development as far towards Water Street as possible in order to create a landscape buffer for the residents at the rear. The scale of these buildings is quite sensitive because of the reduced footprint to the buildings surrounding it. So that's also a mitigating factor in terms of the impact of this development on the site. So where these two volumes are 2 stories, the hall would just be a double height space, so it would have a double height, and then the office itself would be 2 stories, 2 physical floors of office space in order to accommodate the function. A drawback potentially for a 2-story building would be that in order for it, we would need to incorporate an elevator in order to ensure that it's universally accessible to all users. So it adds a little bit of cost in that sense. But if we're able to carefully design it, we can mitigate those costs through a reduction to the total building envelope as well. So these are some of our preliminary indication of how we would propose to develop both sites. Like I said, as we go through this process, we hear your comments about the site selection and the functions of the building and the forms that we're proposing today. We'll incorporate those into our later design iterations that you'll be able to comment and select at our next public consultation. So that brings us to the end of our presentation. It's been a bit of an odd one for us because we can't actually hear you guys, but we would like to first maybe just answer a few questions that we received in writing, and then we'll open it up to the floor. I see there's a lot of comments and questions coming in already, but
I'm answering the ones I can in the chat section. So
okay, great.
Go through the ones we've received by email.
Okay, this is an important one that I wanted to highlight that somebody posed. It says, how are you approaching the development from an environmental standpoint, specifically the preservation or protection of the existing mature trees on the Gallagher property, ? And the impact of the construction on the lake ecosystem in this proposal? So our response is we are going to work closely with township staff and residents to set targets for sustainability through the design phase. Our goal is to build the most sustainable and energy efficient building for our clients as possible, always. And working together, we will help establish these goals at the outset. So right now, where we're just kind of moving blocks around, we've identified what our kind of primary high level goals are. And then as we move through that design process, we can start to look at those goals more acutely. So once we have a building plan developed, we can start a process that's called energy modeling, where we can take a look at the consumption, a baseline consumption based on the building, our design of the building. We can then use that model to input different characteristics, different mechanical systems, different building envelopes in order to determine how that impacts the efficiency of the building. And so that is our strongest tool that we can use in terms of developing a sustainability strategy and energy consumption strategy for the building. The targets, so these targets can be estimated using these energy models prior to construction, and then tested afterwards using commissioning process. So testing the building after it's been constructed. So we can always have really great ambitions and targets, but if the building's not properly tested after it's constructed, some of those things could fall flat on their face and not actually work. So it's something that we're dedicated to doing through this process. And finally, special consideration will be provided to prevent harmful runoff from the site, as we've already identified that as a very important aspect for this project through construction. Patrick, do you have any questions you want to?
I'm kind of answering them on the fly here.
Okay, I'll keep going on my end then. So these are questions that we've received prior to this consultation. What year-round services are currently provided out of the Chantry site township office, and how do you see a benefit for offering these services from the proposed municipal hub? How will it be considered in the design plan? So our response is the plan to provide municipal services in Portland is proposed to create a more centrally located service point for all residents. So something that's more accessible for everybody. The Chantry office is undergoing a building condition assessment, as we already mentioned, by a third party to better understand the cost implications of remaining on site versus relocating to Portland. So that's something that we'll be able to touch on in our next public consultation and give you a little bit of insight into that process as well. I see some, sorry, I think we should just open it up.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So, yeah, I'd like to open it up now. So if anybody, you can raise your hands now to provide your comments or questions or concerns. I will go through and unmute you and allow you to ask your question, and we'll do our best to answer it today. If we can't give you the answer today, then by all means. So we have Norma. Hi, Norma.
Hi, I was just turning my voice back on.
No, you
I
can hear me.
just typed this, but when you did your tour, did you get to see the inside of the clothing co-op and the food bank to see
Yeah.
how cramped they are? And I
Yeah.
wondered in your design with the lobby in the middle and so forth, how they would be incorporated into the picture of the hall.
Yeah, certainly, Norma. That's a great question. We weren't able to get into the space itself, but we toured through the building, and then we were able to see how small it is and how it's accessed at the rear of the building. So if the social services are integrated into our new facility, we're hoping to put them in a more prominent location that's more accessible for everybody, so that anybody will be able to easily gain access to it, and that those social services will have a more usable space that's more tailored to their needs. I think is the answer.
Yeah, it's really space, square footage that's really.
Yeah, and I think if we can engage those stakeholders and design it to suit those needs, we can provide a much more usable space for them.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Norma. So next is Joan Kelly. Hi, Joan. You got to unmute your microphone.
Hi.
Hi, Joan.
Hi. My concern is just as Norma's. I am involved with both of the food bank and the clothing co-op, and we are used a lot by the community, and we are very concerned whether there will be space for us in this new building.
Certainly. Yeah, thanks for highlighting that again, Joan. I think that we're here to listen and understand what your needs are, and if we integrate those social services into the new facility, that they'll be tailored to the needs of those services. Right now, we fully appreciate that you're making do with what you have, but a new facility will offer you kind of a blank slate in order to program them as you need.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joan. Marcia Cannon. Marcia, you just have to unmute yourself before you ask the question. Okay, Marcia's having some difficulties. We'll come back to you, Marcia. If you can unmute your, I'm going to go to Margaret McGlade. Hi,
Hello?
Margaret. Hi, Margaret.
Hi, Dan. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you well. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, my question and comment is to the end of the township offices. And so I'm just noticing in tonight's presentation that it noted 21 offices, and going backwards, I mean, this project from the community here standpoint, from the current population in recent times, started as a redo of a community hall. And I know you have a lot of data dating back to 2009. But the township offices also were 10 to 15 to begin this process a few months back, and now it's jumped to 21. And then on your diagrams, although you did say they're not fixed or set in stone, it's the office space designated for the township is noticeably large, and larger even than the community hall space, which I know you had a stakeholder group provide you with some pretty specific data on the usage. And so I'm hearing Joan and other people speak to the concern for those other services that were front runners for the need for this project. And so certainly concern about the amount of space that the township offices are taking up. And lastly, my question is, if we're looking for township services to be provided to the public, why are we moving 21 employees and not just the ones that might deliver specific services that the public might need? I'm sure that would be a much smaller number.
Yeah, so that's certainly a great question, Margaret. Thanks for asking. We're working with the township in order to determine what that number of staff will be on site. Today in the diagrams, like you noted, we're assuming that there's going to be a municipal office there with the full complement of town staff. But it's something that we're here to listen to this evening. I think that, you know, there's been the idea of moving just a concentrated group of people that could service the town's needs, like like the people you were just describing. But I think that there's also a question on hand whether or not, you know, the Chantry offices are going to offer any longevity in terms of use to the township, and whether, you know, that's going to be an operational priority at some point to replace those offices. And that's something that we are, like I mentioned, we're studying as well. The sizes and spaces of the community hall and the library themselves we're working really closely with the stakeholders in order to establish exactly, you know, what the sizes are at this stage. And then as we develop the plans in more and more detail, we'll be able to see how those functions like social services or the kitchen, or, you know, how those will actually function and how people will move in and out of those spaces. And at that point, we'll be able to really sort of tailor them to the needs of the user. The question also is that, you know, there seem to be two recreational uses, the hall and the library, or institutional uses that were initially driving the project. I think that the township itself is looking for synergies in terms of providing all these services on one site. So in our experience, we're noticing a trend in municipal offices now in order to integrate recreational facilities. So for example, we just did the King Township municipal offices, just outside of Richmond Hill. And we integrated a gym into that project, which seems like an odd use to integrate into a municipal office, but it's really invigorated the municipal office, the town hall, in a lot of ways, because now there's more activity there, more people are seeing more and more events just by virtue of being in the building. They're being more engaged in their community. So we see that there's certainly a benefit there. I would say the program is not set in stone. The 21 offices may not be representative of what the township has today, because in our projects, we're always looking for future growth as well. But we'll be able to offer a more detailed program, which we call like program, which describes who and how they're using their building in our second public consultation. So we hear your concern, Margaret, loud and clear. And I hope that we can offer some more insight into that process a little bit later. So next we'll go to Mark Gravel, pronouncing everybody's name correctly. Mark, if you can unmute your microphone.
Hi there. I think I've just unmuted. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Mark. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for making this presentation. It's always nice to know that Portland now has a voice and will be able to continue if that's truly what's going to happen. One of the things that I would recommend to give you a little bit of insight, have you had an opportunity to look at all the private delegations from council over the last year and a half on some of the ideas that were given and was given freely through all the people that live in this community. That's the first thing. I won't dwell into it, but it might be beneficial for you. No, don't cut me off. It might be beneficial for you gentlemen to take a look, sit down with council in a private session and listen to the concerns. Now, I'm going to say something here and I'm going to be very brief. I'm a grandfather. I'm 59 years old. I live at the busiest corner in Portland. I live in front of the only dock that everybody chooses to bring their vehicles, their $100,000 bass boats. Our grandchildren are playing on the roads because the sidewalks are atrocious. How come we don't hear anything about future vehicles being parked when Chantry moves here, when this hub now becomes an explosive tourist location, and there's not one sign directing safety, one sign for parking, and one sign for basically just common sense. I've worked diligently for the last 2 years. I've had delegations. We've been made promises. I also represent the block parent program, which I've instituted. I am also a representative of Portland Improvement Committee. And maybe you should take a look at some of the concerns. We've had meetings over meetings. And when the mayor got involved, and I'm not going to rant about this, he did something. He shut down the CEC in Portland. Portland doesn't have a voice, except they do. Because I want to tell you one thing. I will not stand here and listen to this gossip about making choices when nobody's actually come to visit Portland. You come to my house, 10 Water Street. I'll give you my phone number. You're more than welcome to come here at 4:30 in the morning and watch 30 to 40 boats come on three-way intersections. And you want to talk about a traffic jam. How dare you tell me you're going to build another hall, another building to house 21, 15, 30 employees? You have not even addressed the basic concerns of a population that's terrified with people of council that don't make proper decisions. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thanks, Mark. I appreciate your question and your concern, and you obviously are very well connected in the community, and you have a lot of passion for improving the community. Certain aspects of what you said are a little bit outside of our purview, but I think one of the first things we heard was that there's an issue with parking and traffic in Portland. And just like you mentioned, it's because of the amenities that you guys have that are related to boat launches. So I don't think we're ever going to be able to make Portland a less popular place to launch your boat, but I think that there are things that the township can do, like you're mentioning, in order to provide better traffic safety. And we can certainly, I'd love to sit down with you, Mark, and hear your concerns, and maybe even in the village, look at them with you. Because I think that there's some things that can be improved through the course of this project. I also think sorry, go ahead, Mark.
I applaud you for that. Okay. Now, if you're very sincere, I live at 10 Water Street. Okay. We're doing major renovations to our home because we feel we're a part of this community. We're trying to lead by example. We have committees. We just feel that the councillors don't listen to us. And we created something very special in this community. And it seems that people want to feel and believe that this is a safe place to come to and live here. Unfortunately, it seems like no communication is being brought forward from councillors. It seems they have their own agenda. I'm not going to go any further on that. So I'm going to stay to my own agenda. I live at 10 Water Street. I watch children almost get cut in their faces with propellers because they got nowhere to go. So I'm a little bit I'm very upset that the first time I've been here for 5 years, and because of my constant safety concerns, finally this morning we had some slow down signs sprayed on Water Street from front to back. And that's because people are actually starting to listen. So maybe going forward, before these little, like shows of faith, why doesn't somebody actually come out, sit in a chair? By the way, they started at 4:15 in the morning when they fish these tournaments. So come on out, because we're up, because they park on our lawn. they park on the sidewalks. The kids have to go down the center. It's awful. It really is. And everybody knows what I stand for. If you guys are going to put the Portland pub in the center of the village, that's great. If you're going to put it on my backyard, that's great. But nobody has addressed the safety issues of the elders. I never hear anything about crosswalk. I had to scream at the mayor to get the speed limit reduced from 60 down to 40. That took me 2 years. So
Okay, Mark.
how
Yeah.
is right? So I'm just starting to rant here. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. It's okay. I can hear you're frustrated, and I want to express that, you know, we are sincere in our goal
Well,
to.
okay, I'll tell you what, because other people want to talk to you.
Yeah.
If you truly are concerned, and we're not talking about the money here, because I'm a former contractor for 32 years. Okay, so there's nothing you can put on me about HVAC or anything else. I know building spec, and there's a lot of other people in this community, very intelligent, who've done millions and millions of dollars of work. I guess what we're trying to say is truly include the community. Don't just say you're going to use them for these Zoom meetings and all this stuff. Actually, truly listen to the people. Call them out. Go visit them. Even if you have to be 6 feet away, come visit me. I'll tell you the truth. There's nothing we're not going to tell you that's not correct. Don't let somebody else dictate our community, please. That's all it is.
Yeah.
I can give.
If I could just make one comment, Mark. I'm hearing your frustration. I understand. You know, you have the lived experience of being there, seeing the issues that are seasonal, that happen predictably every summer. It's critical that we hear this information, because we don't see Water Street at 4:30 in the morning on a Saturday, like you said.
Correct.
So
thank you very much for being
that's
honest
critical. Why we need to know that, because that changes the dynamic of, you know, what we see our role is.
Yes.
You know, so we can promise you we'll do our best to mitigate those problems, but we need your voice to tell us what they are. So thank you for informing us.
And the thing, this is not my only voice. Okay. There's 32 new children here in the last 4 years. It's populated to the point where, you know, we hear all these great things of these potential, these halls, and they're going to put libraries in. Why haven't they done anything now? Like, give them something. Give them a little theme park. Give them something to look forward to. Our beach was closed last year for 2 months. You know, nobody talks about the beach. Nobody talks about the children. You have a elders location. I think there's 40 people live there. They don't even have a crosswalk. So how dare people try to tell us what they're going to do to enhance this community? We've been screaming for 4 years what to do.
We hear you,
Come
Mark.
out.
Yeah.
Well, you hear me now because I'm being loud. But tell you what, you come out, visit me, visit the neighbors, truly set up a proper meeting face to face, like with, you know, the Gallagher property or the Portland Hall, and listen to the people. And I promise you, if you do that, that's a show of faith. It really is. Because I think my gut feeling, council has put a barrier. They've used this COVID not to listen to people like me. I've never had a big mouth in my life, but they sure know who I am in Portland, because I stand for one thing. I'm safety, safety, safety. And that's it. And
Thanks, Mark.
I agree on that big time.
God forbid one of our children gets it, or somebody goes into that creek without a response, or one of the elders are crossing the road and they get it. I'm personally going to go see some people. Okay. And not to be rude or anything, but where does it stop? You know, give us the basics, work with us, talk to us. We do have a voice. And you know what? We're looking for expansion. We're looking for tourists. We want to live. We want to survive. But you got to protect the people too.
Yeah.
You know?
So Mark, I appreciate it. And I want to give some other people an opportunity to speak. We will speak to you. We will be in town, and we'll make a point of taking a look at some of these situations.
Come anytime, anybody.
We got it, right? 10 Water Street. We'll be there at 4:30 in the morning.
They start at 4:15, actually.
But seriously, we'll be by.
Yeah, and I mean, this is not superficial. This is challenging for us too, Mark. We would really prefer to be there in person, but right at this moment, that's not possible. We're committed to being there later in the summer. Yeah, and we're going to hear you. Yeah.
And I commend you guys for even starting this process, because I've been here for almost 5 years, and you can't please everybody, but my God, things do have to change, but they have to change together. They really
Yeah, and we
do.
want it to be rational. We want it to be the best,
Yeah.
sort of the best decision. So we'll
Yeah.
hear you, Mark, and
Great.
we'll come seek you out.
Yeah.
Not at
Yeah,
4:30, but
yeah.
we'll find you.
All right. Thanks,
All
guys.
right,
I appreciate-
thanks.
sorry
We're gonna
for
let somebody
doing a
else.
rant there.
Thanks,
Okay,
Mark.
thanks. Okay, bye.
Okay, who else has their hand up? We got a lot of questions here, so we're trying to move through them a little bit quicker.
Yeah, I'll answer the ones I can as
Okay.
quick as I can in writing. You go ahead.
Liz Church. Liz, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Dan, can you hear
Hi.
me?
Yeah, we can hear you well.
Yeah. Dan, I guess my only concern is it's coming back again to the actually to talking about the food bank and the community service that's offered.
Yep.
When you say that you're going to have some kind of an open lobby, I really feel that people are already struggling in different ways. For us to just put them on show because they have to walk through a main lobby is a concern for me. That's one of the main concerns I have.
Okay.
But I also do have a concern with having the municipal offices. You know, really, they could have a building anywhere. They had lots of opportunity. They could have moved into a school that they closed and moved in there. They've had lots of opportunities. There are other properties where they could build a very sustainable small building suitable for their offices that is much more accessible. It doesn't have to be in the middle of our town, taking up our green space, taking up all. I just think if you could only understand how much we don't really need them to be right in the center. And I hear some of the wonderful things you're talking about, you know, when you built, you know,
King Township or the projects.
a gym or whatever to go with it. I understand all of that. And I think, you know, maybe there is opportunity at some time, but I don't think this is the opportunities that the people want at this moment. And somebody needs to hear the people.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Liz. I appreciate that. I think, you know, there seems to be a division in the community and different opinions. And we hear you loud and clear, Liz. I would say that we're gonna evaluate the impact on the sites as we go through with the township and these other stakeholders from the hall and the library and the social services. There is efficiency in construction to be made by creating a bigger project instead of parsing two projects out into into two, just for fees and different types of mobilization costs and all these things. You're creating a little bit of efficiency by making sort of a hub, but we do hear the concern that it may not be appropriate for the village. So thank you, Liz, and we'll carry that forward into our work now in discussions with the township. I'm going to now call on Connor Desmond.
Yeah, thanks, Dan.
Hi, Connor.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks for the presentation. I just wanted to speak further some of the points that Mark brought up, which with regards to the demographic of the village and young families, young children, and how much the demographic has shifted, I guess, in the last few years. Just wondering if you can speak to a bit more how your plans would incorporate all age groups as well as the younger demographics.
Yeah, certainly. So, and I think that's something that we, in our consultation with the CEC and the town hall representatives and the chief librarian, we've heard that there's a need for that. There's certainly a growing demographic of families with smaller children in town, and that they're underrepresented in terms of the amenities that are provided by the municipality. So, we're still in early days here of developing the plans, but we're already talking about, what types of amenities we can incorporate into the library that are more meaningful for that demographic, and also how the hall can support those types of activities as well for different age groups. I think the spirit of, even before we were hired by the township selected to do this project, the spirit of the project was to create a sort of multifunctional spaces that are as flexible as possible. And I think that if we are able to achieve that, to create sort of a blank canvas in a lot of these spaces that they'll be totally suitable for any age group. But it is something that we've already heard in consultation, that the demographics changing pretty rapidly.
Yeah, and our initial response from our survey, this might be blurred out actually, but the top age group is 1 to 8, followed by 9 to 13. That's respondents when we asked about playgrounds and outdoor amenities outside the building. So that type of feedback, we understand. It's coming from you guys, and we can look for opportunities for outside space around the buildings or on the property that is specifically geared for that age demographic. So thank you for doing the survey. That's very helpful.
That's good. And then also, I guess you said there was a bit of a divide in the village with regards to being in favor or not of the municipal offices being put here. I think maybe that might be a bit inaccurate. I don't know if I've heard anybody that's pro municipal offices in the village. I don't know if you could speak to that. Have you heard people that are pro living in the village that are pro from municipal offices?
I think that we've heard that they're through the survey, which will make public all the results. We just got them today, so we're rifling through them. That there are people who can see that there could be a benefit to having everything in one facility, just from a cost savings and efficiency standpoint. And I think, from our standpoint, we understand that there is a concern about the size of the municipal facility in the village, but if it's thoughtfully designed, we can totally mitigate that risk. But we're here. That's why we're here today, Connor, and to hear your voices, because so far we've been reading council reports, planning studies, and a lot of hearsay and talking to different community members. But this is our first shot at hearing people like yourself, Connor, and the people that are living there every day, and we're observing the changes that are happening over the years.
Yeah. And sorry, just one last point there, question for you. I guess you talked about sustainable design and gave some examples of buildings that you guys have designed there. Would you be able to share, like, based on those, or what you're thinking for the village, a price per square foot of what you've seen come in?
Well, I think I mentioned in our polls that it's totally variable. If we add a municipal facility to the project, the price per square foot will likely decrease because there's efficiency in building a larger building. Smaller projects cost more, just by virtue of the fact that it's quite a complicated job, and that there's not a lot of profit to be made by a contractor at the end of the day. So that's one way of answering that question.
Could you share, I guess, like some numbers there?
We're for a commercial building, it can vary anywhere between $400 a square foot up to a courthouse would be in the thousands of dollars a square foot. So we are dedicated to making sensible choices in this type of context, though. We're not building a Shangri-La type of building. And we're also observing what a lot of you on this call will have observed this past year, an incredible hyperinflation in materials and labor. Yep. So I can't tell you exactly what it's going to cost per square foot, Connor, but I can tell you that we're going to do our best to make that a manageable, sustainable number economically for you guys, for the ratepayers, because it's a huge responsibility on our shoulders to not, to be responsible with public money. I can't answer the question directly because I just honestly don't know that answer right now, Connor.
Okay. Thanks, Dan. That's it for me.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to keep going. Mary Enid Haynes.
Hi, thanks very much for having this meeting. I'd like to just ask a little bit about the stakeholders within, that you've been speaking with, as Mark has said, and Connor and Maggie, that, the people of the village are the ones who are going to be the most impacted by the construction and by the location of the hall. And we're all saying the hall because we're not talking about a hub. That we were told, when we had our survey last year, And I understand there are some efficiencies and lower square, cost per square foot. However, when you have a larger building, then the entire thing costs more. So that's just, we need a real look at the real cost of this what could be a monolith. And what's really important is the scale of the village, the scale of the homes, and the feeling that of something that's really big that incorporates so many offices would just overwhelm the village itself. And another comment I'd like to make is regarding the style of the buildings. I mean, this is an old town, and it's, again, I think it's really important to incorporate have some historical perspective, and what's going to be incorporate, yes, some modern ideas, but also that's more in keeping with the style of the houses that are here. And basically we're talking houses. We don't have these big buildings. And I just really feel that what I saw, particularly on the Gallagher site, is overwhelming. 2 stories, blocking for the villagers, blocking the lake, and not to mention shadows and etc. for people's gardens and so on.
I think, if I could just chime in on that note, just so there's no confusion with that bubble diagram we indicated, it wouldn't really be a true 2 stories. It'd more be like a 1.5 story.
Okay, well, you've got to also consider what some of the villagers who've lived here for a long time have said. What's buried underneath what you look at is grass there.
Of course.
It's a bit of a quagmire underground there.
Yeah.
And also, before making a decision on a site, will you do an environmental assessment before you choose a site? Because, again, the proximity to the lake for both of the sites is a real concern. But, I really feel that it's really vital that you consider that the villagers, and I appreciate people of Rideau Lakes are it's tax money for everybody from Rideau Lakes, but the villages are a major stakeholder, and I don't feel that we're really represented fairly in this.
Well, thank you, Mary. I think, you made a lot of excellent points, and I think, some of the things you say are truly valid. And Patrick and my first impression of the village was that the sensitivity to scale of the development would be really important. And that even if we're going to have a bigger facility, somehow we were immediately looking to break it up in terms of volume and scale to be more resemble the scale of some of the homes in the village, so that it kind of looks and feels like it was always there. In terms of the style, as architects, we don't necessarily like to talk about stylistic impression, but we're looking at what we call the vernacular architecture of your village. And Patrick and I are both from the East Coast of Canada, so the village kind of is familiar to both of us in a way, in terms of the architecture and the landscape. And we've built in those contexts as well. And I think that there's in our survey, we asked a question about, what should the style of the new, the architecture of the new municipal facility be? And there was an overwhelming response that the new facility should strike a balance between referencing architectural heritage and character while providing contemporary community building that will be relevant in the future. So as architects, we are able to do that by, a few things, like looking at the materials of the town, the material palette of the buildings. There's a lot of beautiful stone buildings, cedar shakes, wood shakes, and we can start to reference some of that material palette in our new building, so that feels like it's referencing the context, but incorporated in a clever way that is respectful of the heritage of the site and the context, but also looks like more of a contemporary facility, so that you may not recognize that it's a replication of an old building right away. So that's going to be our goal. We're doing an inventory of all of the buildings in the village right now. There's some really incredible buildings that have been converted into houses that were once banks. There's incredible for us fabric to the village, and we understand the sensitivity. We're going to pay special attention to the scale of the building, whether it incorporates a municipal facility or not. We're going to pay very special attention to these points that you brought up today.
Okay, well, thank you. I would like to just make one more, suggestion, and that is that along with Mark Gravel, a neighbor of mine, I'd be happy to take you on a tour of the village. Not as a, you had the people from the township came and gave you a tour, but they don't live here. None of them live here except for our esteemed councillor, Caroline.
Yeah, we did meet. Sorry to interrupt. We did meet some of the hall admin on site as well. So I would, but
okay.
I totally.
Did you go? No, I'd like to take you on a walk around the village and tell you about the houses. And, we could do that historical tour, that the pamphlet I'm sure you're very familiar with.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I think having a meeting with the villagers would be a really, really good idea in terms of public relations for your firm, and not just take the word of the municipality. Okay. I think it's really, really important. And I appreciate this opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you, Mary. And we would prefer to be there in person right now, because we could probably take a tour with you around the village, but hopefully in our second
we can
session,
all wear masks.
Yeah.
And we can all wear masks. And, we could have more than 2 sessions as well. We're in the middle of a pandemic, I think it's something that is really, really upsetting people, that this feeling of really not being consulted. And using the pandemic a little bit like the Ford government has done, using the pandemic as an excuse. So let's have another meeting. Let's have 3, let's have 4 or 5 meetings. What does it matter? And, when we can safely take you on a tour with masks, we'll all be 6 feet apart. Let's do it, please.
Yeah, thanks, Mary. I think that's a great idea. And we're here tonight in this really kind of convoluted format to try and hear your voices, and we'd prefer to be there in person for sure. So we'll make accommodations for these tours in the summer. We still have to come back and do more documentation, so we'll make sure to link up with you guys when we're there, and then we'll have an open format outside. I also like just to add that that there may be a perception that the township is driving the process, but so far in our experience, they've been very hands-off and want us to engage not only the village residents, but the whole town, the township beyond, to hear their voices. So we're just starting, we're just scratching the surface. We hear that there's a lot of sensitivity and there's a lot of frustration and good comments and very valid ideas being brought forward. So it's just the beginning, and we'll carry on. So thanks, Mary. I appreciate your comments.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna go to, how much time do we have? Well, we got plenty of time here. Okay. Sharon Singer. Sharon, can you unmute your microphone? Okay, I'll try Meg McCallum. Hi, Meg. Hello?
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Super. Okay, great. Thanks. I really appreciate the presentation, and it's been very interesting listening to everyone who's provided feedback as well. I am a fairly new resident of Rideau Lakes. I've been here for about 4 years and moved to the village of Newborough, which is the next village over from Portland. And I moved here to a village in Rideau Lakes because of the community feeling, wanting to be close to neighbors as well as being close to nature and water. And I know that one of you mentioned the strategic plan that the Township of Rideau Lakes has, and one of the components of that strategic plan is village vitality. And in my opinion, that really means having walkers and local visitors in addition to seasonal residents and tourists coming to the village. You know, and in Newborough, I know what it's like to need to leave the village for all of my everyday needs, except for the library. We do have a library here, but I'm often going to Westport or over to Portland to get all of my daily needs met, whether we're talking about health services or groceries or library or other things. So I really like the idea of having a municipal hub that's adding to that sense of village vitality. I will acknowledge that I am a former staffer of the Township of Rideau Lakes. I worked for the township for a couple of years and still go back occasionally as a temporary staffer. And I can see a lot of benefits from a purpose-built, thoughtfully located municipal hall rather than what's there right now. And I can tell you that one of my first thoughts when I first moved to Newborough was, why on earth did they choose to put the township office in the middle of nowhere? It makes no sense for the people that work there or for anyone coming in to pay their taxes or drop off or pick up a building permit or get a marriage license or come to a meeting. So I know that there's a lot of challenges, and I've been really appreciative of the comments that have been made this evening. And I understand that you all are working through a process, and I know that you guys are really listening and taking in what people are talking about. And I know that you can't solve every problem or everything in the village with this one project. But I do see the connections between the and the people and the safety, the road safety, the parking, all that. That's a big pernicious issue in that village, I know. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how this project develops over the next while as your ideas kind of circle around and settle in and hear everybody's feedback and you get out to visit the village and figure it all out. I just want to throw my piece in, which is that sustainability and accessibility are really key. And I was so happy to hear all of the attention that you're putting toward the sustainability of the building and the connection to the outdoor space and the connection to the lake as well. I think that, you know, and as well, the accessibility and social equity. This building that you're going to be working on needs to meet the needs that we have today, but it also needs to meet the needs of the coming generations, because this building will be with us for a long time. And I think it's worthwhile to go through the process and come up with the best possible thing that we can. So I know this is a process. I know you're doing everything you can to hear from people in our awkward COVID times. I really appreciate the opportunity tonight online on Zoom. But I guess, you know, this is a very long-winded way to get around to a question, which is, I'm wondering how you're going to be engaging non-techie folk in this process. You know, as much as you talked about the survey as being sort of the main feedback mechanism, but for people who aren't online and who aren't on Facebook and aren't kind of following this stuff closely and don't go to the township website, how are you going to be reaching out to people who aren't engaged technically? So that's
Thank you, Meg. Those are all great comments, and thank you for those. We're learning a lot tonight as well in terms of some of these factors of safety and vehicular traffic, and but we appreciate your comments. The accessibility of the consultation is, we're struggling at this, because of the pandemic right now. You're seeing it in the sessions that we're having tonight, which are not conventional. We've heard your concerns mirrored by other community members as well. So we've prepared some physical documents, some pamphlets to mail to direct people to where they need to go in order to access the information. And then we've also heard requests for actually kind of physically printed versions of the survey through some of the questions that we received tonight for people that could be able to pick it up or could be dropped off. There's also potential to call the township offices if anybody is not comfortable emailing or accessing the survey online. They can leave comments and questions through callback, which will be recorded and then redistributed to the community so everybody can see those comments as well. We really want to make sure everybody's voice is heard through this. So we're going to open up every possible channel that we can that's practical. So thanks for that comment, Meg. I think it's a valid one for sure. And we've already been in discussions with our partners at the township in order to mitigate some of those concerns. So hopefully we can address them in the coming weeks and prior to that survey closing in July.
Great, thanks. And I would just suggest that you also reach out to the folk at the library, because they're really great at getting out the information about the programs that they do as well.
Yeah, certainly. We already had a meeting with the chief librarian, and we've already requested that some of this documentation be physically available at all the branches, because there's quite a robust system of small library branches in the township that are frequented by a lot of demographics. So that's a very good suggestion, something that we're looking into.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Meg. Okay, so let's see, got a few more hands up here. Sorry, everybody who has already spoken. Oh, here we go. Harold.
Yeah, hi. Hi, Dan.
Hi, Harold.
Yeah, hi. How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Yeah, great. Yeah, fine, thanks. I've got a bit of a question on the timing.
Yep.
And it's around, you're going to get the survey finished in July, and your time frame stated you're going to have the design completed in August. And it from my time frame, it just doesn't sound like there's enough time for that. And I guess I'd like to get your feedback on how that whole set, like, to me, you almost have to have your design done now. I'm in the engineering business, so get your design done now to get your full package done by August. So I don't see how that's going to work. Can you explain that to me, please?
So when we say design, we just mean like concept schematic design with approval to proceed at council. So we're not talking about like contract documents or construction documents or any of that stuff. The survey has a lot of questions. We've already had a lot of feedback. We're going to leave the survey open until just before the second public consultation, where we'll be providing some more detailed designs to the community. So the survey itself,
the way I read it, though, it's that final design in August is what you're going to move forward with, and that's it. So it's going to be the second consultation. The way I read it, second consultation is you've decided. That's it.
No, I think the second consultation at the beginning of July, we'll be able to take comments and then integrate them into a final design proposal that can be brought forward to council. What I'm hearing tonight is that might not be the best process, Harold, and so we're going to review that with the township staff. There seems to be maybe some other opportunities to engage villagers and broader community members to get more feedback at an early stage. But we're really trying to ramp up this feedback from today onwards and kind of run our design process in tandem with that. I think that there's a few really key questions that need to be answered before we can start to lay out the building and the plans. But that schedule could be subject to change depending on how this unfolds.
Okay.
So I hear you. I think
you did it. Yeah, sorry, I have just one more question. You had an analysis of the status of the Chantry facilities. Did you also do a analysis of the viability of reusing the existing hall?
Yeah, that was already completed by a third party. There was a building condition assessment completed by a third party prior to our involvement in the project. The building, we visited, toured it ourselves. It's not
that building serve.
Yeah,
yeah.
We would say it's not. There are huge accessibility hurdles to overcome to make that building universally accessible. The condition of the building itself is in very poor repair, and from a consultant standpoint, like structurally, to bring that thing up to code would be very cost prohibitive. So we agree. If you can
put that survey, that condition survey, on the website.
Yeah, I'll leave it. It's not our document; it's the township's document. But I'll leave it to the township to share the pertinent information. I think you can tell it's not an inclusive or accessible building, and it's reached the end of its life cycle. So for us to renovate that would be very complicated and cost prohibitive.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Harold. Let's see. There's a few more people. Robert and Heather Hines. I'll try you again.
Hello. Hi, Dan.
Hi.
Well, thank you for your time and your professionalism tonight. It's great.
Thank you.
I'm in agreement with all the other villagers I've talked to, which is like 95% of them, that we really don't want the township offices here, only because it just makes the scale of this project so immense that it's going to ruin the ambience of our little town. Like you were talking about the viability of the existing building in Chantry. Well, no matter what, the works department's going to have to stay there, so they're going to have to do something with that building anyway. They can't move the works department here. So now we're talking about a divided township. So you're talking back and forth, and if they have meetings, everybody from there has to come here, or they have to go there. There's tons of open space in Rideau Lakes. Why don't they go somewhere else, or stay where they are?
Expand where they are.
Expand where they are. Trying to shoehorn all these facilities into one of these lots is just going to be, it's just too much. It's just not going to suit the town. And my other question is, worst comes to worst, why do you have to use only one of the lots? If you divide it, I know it's going to cost a little bit more, but on your designs, you've pretty much got separate buildings anyway. Why can't you use both lots? And then that would keep the size of everything down to a more manageable level, and keep more greenery on each lot, and more parking on each lot. And like, why do you only have to use one or the other? The township owns both anyway. There's no way a developer is going to come in and buy one of those after, which is what we were told by the mayor some time ago. I mean, if they own them now.
Yeah, certainly. Those are both good questions.
You know, and the other thing is, by using the one lot, there's no room for expansion. Like, as somebody previously said, we were talking 10 offices for township, and then it was 15, and now it's 21. Well, what happens in 5-10 years from now when they have to double the size? There's nowhere to expand on these lots. Like, they're just too small to shoehorn all this stuff in.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Heather.
I should tell you that Rob was a senior construction manager in Ottawa for 35 years. He was director of construction for Sir Terry Matthews. He built an $80 million hotel, 2 golf courses, whole housing developments, all the RJ Nickel homes, the Gloucester Wakefield, etc. So he has seen
like Barhaven grow from nothing to huge, where the Rideau Lakes Township is a township that is right now ready to grow more housing, more everything, and the township offices will grow in time, and they need bigger space. They need to think about a future 20, 30 years down the road, not something now.
It's just gonna be too much parking, too much traffic.
So
this little town to sustain. I mean, there's lots of other empty properties, and they have to do something, as I said, with the works department anyway. So they're gonna have to either fix that building up no matter what. They can't just abandon it. Where's the works department gonna go? And they also own another building just outside of Smith Falls. Why can't, if they want to amalgamate, why can't, you know, part of it go there or something, like where the old PP used to be? That's a nice looking building. What are they gonna do with that?
So I think you guys, I hear you loud and clear, and I think we've heard a question similar to this in our survey. And so, okay, let's break it apart. There's a few questions here. So the Chantry office, Patrick and I surveyed the Chantry office. It seems like the municipality's been shoehorned into that facility already. That was not purpose built for the offices. So that's an aside from whether it should be in Portland or on a separate site. So we can tell already that from an architectural use standpoint, it's not really a good fit there. It's not an accessible facility in certain aspects as well. But you know, the township's not going to divest of that. Certain people would remain on site, but a lot of the corporate services and these other functions that have nothing to do with public works would potentially move somewhere else. Whether or not this becomes part of our project or not, or split into a separate facility, is yet to be seen. I think as you know, as the designers of this project, we see that there are certain benefits in incorporating it. We hear the concerns about the scale of the facility. And we think that
have you considered using both lots at any time?
Well, we just heard that comment. It was you guys in the survey. Somebody had commented that. And Robert, it sounds like you have a tremendous amount of experience in construction, so you could appreciate the complexity of running a project that way, or we have two separate projects, or we tender
but they're close by. I mean, you still only need one office, one construction office, and it's very close by. And as your designs, they're separate structures anyway. So there's not going to be a huge amount of cost.
There's certain duplications of costs though, like say the servicing costs, all the sort of heating and cooling infrastructure that you could just scale in a larger facility instead of duplicating it. So there are certainly additional costs, but we hear you loud and clear. Like that might be a better approach in terms of the scale.
I just don't know how you're going to fit the septic in the Gallagher house for the 10,000 square feet with 7 wells all around it.
I mean, those are things.
The septic field is going to have to be huge. I mean, I just don't understand how you're going to fit all the parking, all the septic, and all those buildings on this site.
And not impact the water.
And try to keep the trees at the front. It's not going to happen.
I mean, that's something that we're looking at. The sort of bathroom requirement load for the municipal office to be the smallest out of all 3 uses, because it's an office, it's a commercial office. So it's not contributing in a great way to the volume of kind of effluent that would be going into a septic field. But I think that your comments are valid. Both comments are valid, and it's something that we haven't really considered yet. And so we'll take it away. We'll look at the cost benefit of it. We'll look at the benefit in terms of the scale and the impact that would have on the village. And we'll also, you know, what we're hearing today is maybe, you know, if the municipal office needs to be in the village, maybe it's a smaller scale. So this is our first blush.
I appreciate that. But
go ahead.
We've lived here for so long. We just want to throw our opinions out. Like the impact would be so less if you use both lots. If you have to have the township here, it would just. It's just trying to shoehorn all that onto one lot. I said with the septic and parking, like 21 spaces just for the township personnel is huge.
And they all drive pickup trucks. Have you ever been to the parking lot at the township office? Most of the people drive F-150s. Okay, my husband, I can't even park in 2 spots with his truck. Another thing is, I would like to say is, isn't there any other properties that the township could buy and where they can
town.
expand for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years and have everything there. Like a lot of the municipalities have everything in one location. And I know there's a beautiful site. The Ken Mason's old property is massive
Yeah.
there. You know, that site would be lots of room to expand there. It's just, even if you use 2 sites here, I just don't feel that they could put everything that they need with the township to expand in the future. Like they need to have a substantial size piece of property, because this township is, I have been a realtor for 37 years. I see this township growing like Manotick. It grew back when I was growing up.
Everybody wants to move to a small town now. The prices of real estate in this town have doubled almost in 2 years. I mean,
Yeah, we see that as a trend in town, is that
exactly anywhere. I mean, people are exiting Toronto as fast as they can. So
yeah, well, and even in Ottawa now,
Yeah.
because of the market, younger families are struggling to find affordability
Exactly.
in the city. So that's probably in part and parcel with another Harold's comment earlier today about the growing demographic of young families in your community.
Oh yeah, there's some young families here again, which is so nice to see.
Yeah, it's great.
The township's gonna have to expand. So as I said,
so
and jam it in now. I just think it's too much.
I'd like to touch on that too, because in all of our projects where we're dealing with, you know, whether it's a municipal office or office for private organization, our first question is, you know, how many offices do you currently have? Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Exactly.
Because we wouldn't be doing, so the numbers that we're working with right now are based on future projections. So somebody had said, you know, there's too many offices in the facility. We're not gonna ever design something for the status quo that we see today, because it's gonna grow. And what's the purpose of building a brand new facility that is not gonna fit your needs in 5 years?
Exactly, and the township hasn't grown that much in the last 20 years compared to what's going to happen in the next 10 years, for what I can see.
Yeah, I would agree.
We're going to see substantial growth.
Substantial growth
in the next couple of
because
years.
we are only an hour from Ottawa, and like Toronto, the people are driving 2 hours to work.
Absolutely.
And another thing, another thing, we've been here 27 years. It only feels like 5 years. So you're looking at something 5, 10 years. That's not a long time. Like, you know, time flies by and things grow and fast. So, you know, I think we should be looking at a 30-year plan, not a 10-year plan.
Yeah, certainly, you know, the life cycle of a building is 30 to 40 years. So we'd be at the end of the life cycle by the end of that period. So we should be looking further ahead. The 10 years.
The house we're living in is 200 years old. You can design something that can last longer than 30 years. Come on.
Oh, before. Sorry.
This building was built in 1830, and I even go further back than that. My family came to New Brunswick in 1730. They built the very first sailing ship ever built in Canada. So history is what we're all about, and preserving things, right?
Certainly, but I mean, I'm not saying that your assets not garbage at the end of that life cycle. But how many times have you renovated your house in the last 200 years?
Don't even suggest this.
He has a disease. He's won all kinds of awards in downtown Ottawa for preserving buildings. So
I'm already renovating stuff I renovated. So there you go.
Yeah. So that's what I mean by that 30-year life cycle, is that after that time you're gonna have to renovate it. So I think that the other important idea that we haven't maybe articulated very clearly is that a municipal office is going to need something like a council chamber, which is a huge expense. In a shared facility, the council chamber can be the hall. So there you're saving 1,500 square feet of space, just bang right off the bat. And so those are efficiencies that we're looking to kind of carve out and articulate a little bit better, maybe in our next consultation. But thank you guys. And what I'm learning through this question period is that for a small village, you guys have a lot of really strong voices and a lot of really applicable kind of knowledge and experience that can help guide us through this process. So I think it's really encouraging for us. I'm really happy to hear that.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Heather and Robert.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Okay. have I missed anybody? If everybody can lower their hands so that I just can't, I can see a lot of hands still raised, but anybody that I've missed.
Yes, I'm still waiting.
Oh,
Sharon?
sorry. Is this Marcia?
Sharon.
Oh, Sharon. Sorry, Sharon. Go ahead.
I've got a couple of comments. One is about the diagrams you show about the Gallagher property show that you're planning to cover the whole width of the property and add more parking behind the building. This to me shows that there isn't much interest or value for green space.
No.
And if you use the Gallagher property that way, it takes away forever the possibility of having more parkland. The Hannah Park is quite small, so it's nice, but it's not very big, and you can't use it for like a track around the outside. It's too small. It's only maybe 40 yards wide, and the swimming area is only about 40 feet wide. So that we don't have a lot of green space as is if you take away the Gallagher property. If you put the community hall on a portion of it, like let's say on one half of one side, then there's still some room for parkland. But the way you've got it planned there really isn't much. And if you compare that
to divide it, that's what she's saying.
If you compare that to the community hall property, that would use the land more efficiently, and you would not have to cut down those trees according to your diagram of the plan, because those trees come between the parking lots and the outdoor space. So that isn't really a consideration there, that you're saying that that's one of the bad points, that you'd have to cut down trees. You wouldn't have to cut down any single tree then for a town hall. Now, I'm also on the side of, we don't really need the municipal offices here because, well, even for the use of the town, of the people in the village, it would be a big space, and the kind of design you put into a municipal office would look more like those generic spaces or the Queen's University space that you put up there with big glass walls and a big office building look. And that would be fine if you were using that design for putting up a municipal hall, or maybe using that property in Chantry if they need to add on to it. You've got the property there. The other question is, well, Chantry is in the middle of nowhere. Well, why is that a problem? It is central. In fact, it's not in the middle of nowhere, because there are communities to the south of Chantry. We're at the kind of the northern point of the township. We're not in the middle, actually. If you were going to be right in the middle, you'd be still in the middle of nowhere.
Okay, thanks,
And
Sharon.
the distances are not large that you're driving here or there. It's not a large distance to drive. We're not in Toronto where you're driving from, I don't know, Mississauga to Scarborough.
These are all good points, Sharon. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I think, I'll answer it to the best of my ability. The first time I had to drive to Chantry, I got lost. As somebody who's not a resident of the township, obviously, but it is a little bit remote. And I think you mentioned that it's not a long drive, but it's still a drive. And by potentially moving the municipal offices to a situation like this, like Portland or maybe somewhere else, we can certainly start to create a location that's walkable or accessible through different types of transit for at least some residents of the township. It's never going to be possible for everybody, but at least for some people. The other idea is that, you know, if we move this municipal offices into some place like Portland, that there's going to be some fringe benefits for the other businesses in town. You're going to be attracting more traffic and volume to town, which, you know, is not only a benefit, but sometimes a drawback, which we're understanding tonight. And so I think those are important. Those are really important ideas when we're talking about accessibility to the offices for municipal services for township residents. And in terms of, you know, creating sort of longevity in through the design of the building, to support the community into the future. We're learning tonight also that there's, you know, a strong desire to have more outdoor space in the community in downtown Portland. So we're trying to earmark some of those in our schemes here. But certainly, you know, there's more opportunity on the existing hall site. So it's something that we think we kind of earmarked as being a really relevant and important piece. So on the Gallagher property site, we are immediately identified that by creating double height or double story volumes, we could free up some more of that space for outdoor space. But we hear your concerns loud and clear, Sharon, and we want to make sure that there's really meaningful civic outdoor space integrated into this project, because what you have right now is nice, but like you said, it might not be big enough to accommodate everybody's needs. So those are good points and well taken, and we'll carry them forward into our design. Did that answer your question, Sharon?
She's muted.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah,
Sharon.
it did, in a way, some of it.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll take that back, and you'll see those kinds of ideas expressed in further iterations of our drawings. Have I missed anybody else? I still see a lot of hands up, but some people have already spoken. Make sure. If I miss you, please just unmute yourself and ask the question now.
Dan?
Yep.
Hi, it's Megan again.
Oh, we got some
I'm just following up on a few points made by others.
Yep.
And can you hear me? Sorry.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, great. I've said a few times in my conversations with my elected representative and other folks around the community, one of the biggest influencing factors I think here really needs to be perspective. And you've been invited out to people's homes, and I know you're using the survey to help you get that perspective. But I really do hope when it comes time to make decisions, I know that as we're repeatedly told, it's council's decision, but that you have to consider, please and thank you, the perspective of the people who live here. And so when we're talking about the idea of how important or relevant it is, the drive out to the township offices, when people live in a rural township such as Rideau Lakes, a drive is pretty much a daily factor, regardless of where you are going or for what reason. So to use the idea that we want to bring something into the village it might change it for some, but not for all. And so I'm not really sure that that becomes a relevant factor in the decision making, or that it should be. And last Monday in an MSC meeting that I listened to, the council was talking, the mayor himself was actually talking about the future and about a way to make services more available to residents. And he was quite excited at the idea of online payment services. And so I feel like we're kind of between things when we're talking about the future, but are we really actually thinking about the future? So do we need to bring in the whole township office and all of the employees if moving forward, it is very likely that there will be a lot of things that are accessible online? And also to the fact that during a stay-at-home order, where on the township website, we're actually instructed not to visit the site, but people are still able to go about their daily lives, and we don't actually right now have to visit. And so I just think if that is currently occupying as much space as it is, we really need to maybe get, another consultation from an outside that not yourselves who have been contracted and not the township, but to look at what planning for the future, especially the fact that we're in an unknown time like the pandemic, what that might look like for services. And lastly, just the fact that Sharon brought up about the use of green space on the Gallagher property, and Mark had mentioned or suggested to you that you review delegations. And there was a recent delegation, myself and Mary, to the council about a prospective use for the Gallagher property being a community cultivated green space. And then that was turned down, and we actually had 46 signatures. So the support of a large portion of the village population. And I bring this up to you so that you know how heavily favored green space, outdoor space is by the people who live here for a multitude of reasons, but that looking at a design, and it's nice that you've included a small sector of the space, but that's not authentic green space. And when we think about the changing world that we're living in, and if you look at statistics across our country, levels of government are shifting towards recognizing the need for green space and what it does for communities. And so, as to what other people have said as well, the township owns both sites. And so if we're looking at small deciding factors, if you weigh heavily what the public wants and needs, it sounds like we can have everything. We can have a new hall and library. We can have that alongside green space because we can currently support that. So again, just the need for perspective.
I was just going to respond to the first part of that regarding services going online. And obviously, office work is changing day to day. Some strategies can be implemented where you have flexible workspaces or hot desks. Some companies are choosing to send in half their employees at once and cycle them through, so you never have a permanent desk. There's different ways office work is going to change, and that's something that comes to mind when you speak about everything going online regarding payment and bills and those kinds of things. So there are opportunities to influence the architecture of some of the contentious aspects of this proposal.
Yeah, and thanks, Patrick. I think also we're designing municipal facilities and offices all the time, and through the pandemic, we've initiated and completed many of these projects. So we're bringing those ideas to the table in terms of how the pandemic has changed office culture. Like Patrick's mentioning, in municipal offices, we're seeing the inclusion of hoteling stations that are not permanent fixed addresses for employees in order to reduce the cost of new facilities. So those are ideas that we're living in all of our work every day. So we're implementing those ideas in our project as well to create efficiencies. I think
it just sort of sounds like people are very aware of the fact that your experience and your current projects they're going to give you some perspective from the building side of things, but I think there are just still so many unknowns. Like Heather and Rob were saying, the way that the township is changing and their needs, and if they are already, which I had a question answered from a township staff, that they're already up in the 21, 22 employees. So if you factored in, which was originally 10 to 15, is now 21, that really doesn't sound like it leaves any room for growth. And I mean,
so not the full complement of staff would be moving to the new facility. So that is the short explanation for that question.
Well, then, so what happens to the point that other people were asking about? So we're still going to be running a cost to problem solve the space that they're in, which we just continue to be told it's at the end of its life cycle, or is, I know that the BCA that is underway, but
yeah,
we can't be talking about sharing space efficiencies when we're actually now talking about running to run two places.
I think that Chantry existed as a municipal works garage, and that's kind of what it was. That's the type of building. It's a pre-manufactured building. So I think that some of those services I've never done a municipal office where the council chambers and the corporate services are right next to a garage where they're repairing cars. So I think that the evolution of the Chantry office has created a space that sort of works, but just barely for a municipal office. And now that it's sort of reaching the end of its life cycle in terms of time for renovation or repair, this is the opportunity. This is the time to be asking the questions that you're asking, Margaret, but also keeping an open mind in terms of how we can maybe potentially create sort of efficiency in your project.
Right. Okay. And I just want to make, sorry,
that.
one last point here. Sorry, because we just have waited so long to have this opportunity, and I'll be quick and I will respect others. The thing is you can hear the objection and questioning and concern from our residents here, but when I was told in a response today that the BCA, they're looking to complete that in June. So when they started talking about moving township offices, as this project started to unfold, it would really appear that that was a cart before the horse idea there. So before they had any actual data that they could share or look at, they started to talk about moving offices. And so again, I know that from your side of things, I mean, you don't want to talk about any agendas, but it's really hard to think that there isn't an agenda here, and that when we see the offices taking up as much space as they do, without any data first, right? They're choosing to move before they tell us why they need to move, other than in a blanket statement. And that doesn't sit well, as you can see. And it also is taking away from community needs. So
I think, I hear your concern. Through our consultation with the township, we've always been encouraged to be third party impartial. I think that it's quite obvious that something needs to be done with Chantry. So there's been a strategic decision to integrate it into this facility.
that doesn't mean it's the right decision, though.
No,
right?
no,
It doesn't mean
we're
it's the
just
right
saying
decision.
that there was a strategy there, and we're hearing that there's a lot of objection to that this evening. So
well, which suggests perhaps it's not the right decision.
We appreciate that, your opinion and the opinions that we've heard this evening, and we understand the concerns that are part and parcel with having those facilities together. So nothing's presupposed in this process. I just want to reiterate that.
I really hope that is true. Thank you, Dan.
And I also wanted to touch on your green space question, because you talked about a community-led garden. I think, we're in our design proposals, we have a kitchen that sometimes is adjacent to outdoor space. And one of our initial thoughts was that it would be great if we could grow our own produce in a community function as part of this project. And it could be sort of an incubator for community activity on the site. And also you could be serving your own food through the public kitchen. So these are ideas that we want to have implemented in the project. Not everything needs to be huge in order to be successful. So even if we can carve out, whether depending on what property we end up on, we can carve out these spaces and animate them and design them in such a way that make them really dynamic and special. So it's something that we're dedicated to. And we understand that connection to the natural environment in Portland is really key. So thanks, Margaret, for your comments and your concerns. And I hope that you can see that this isn't predetermined in our next sessions, and that we're here to listen. Okay, so I think that brings us, have I missed anybody else? I think everybody else has already spoken. Give everybody one last opportunity. If you want to unmute your microphone and pose any more questions. Liz? Oh, sorry, Liz. Sorry, Liz. Okay.
I really just want to say, Dan and Patrick, how much I appreciate you coming out this evening and facing these people, all of us. We're not always, we're very passionate, and I'm sure you can feel that today, but I really appreciate how well you've listened to us and trust that you can take that back. So thank you.
Certainly. Thank you, Liz. And I mean, to us, what we like to see is communities that are engaged in the process. It serves us no good to have these sessions and not really take anything away from it. So we've got, our basket is full now of comments. We have the survey that's still running. We have questions. Please pose any questions that you were not comfortable maybe, or comments that you weren't comfortable saying this evening. Please pose them an email. Let's see, somebody else raising their hand. Oh, Harold. Sorry, it's hard for me to keep track of everybody. If please feel free to unmute yourself and ask any comments or questions. Okay. So yeah, like I said, please feel free to pose the questions in writing to the project website. You can call and ask and leave a question with the at the town hall. We will be reviewing our process for engagement. Patrick and I will be on site again soon to meet with some stakeholders. So we'd like to take that opportunity to engage town residents who expressed an interest this evening in doing that.
Dan, really quick.
Yep.
Sorry. Who are the stakeholders that you're identifying, that you're referencing rather?
So the stakeholders so far that so far we've only met with the building users, so the library, hall, some residents of CEC. That was our initial stakeholder meeting in order to figure out what the needs were for those spaces, like in terms of like architectural needs. Stakeholders are you, Margaret, and everybody that we're speaking to tonight, with well-attended session. So this is our first opportunity to engage the community at large, which I think was successful in terms of the feedback that we've received. But it's not the end. So we'll be having more opportunities to have these conversations in the future.
Can I speak just one last thing? It won't be long.
Yep.
When my husband and I moved here 27 years ago, we moved our whole family from Rockcliffe Park in Ottawa, from downtown Ottawa, and we came into Portland by boat from a friend's cottage, and instantly we fell in love with the town. And the reason we fell in love with the town is because the grass grows to the street. You can walk on the streets. You don't have to have walk on curbed, and there's no curbs, and everything seems so natural, and there was such a simple life, and we had, you know, really complex jobs and busy lives, and our children had to make appointments to visit their friends. And in Portland, all the kids hang out together. Like the green space is a whole town. The reason why everybody moves to Portland is because of what it's not Westport, it's not all these towns or anything. And people are always saying, oh, Portland doesn't have this and Portland doesn't have that. The reason we're all here is because we love the ambience of the simplicity of the town, of the fact that we don't have a lot of services because we can drive to all those services. We are such a unique town that no one else has. And we love it. We love to see the little kids playing on the streets, riding their bicycles safely. I mean, it's the ultimate of simplicity that everybody is living here. If people didn't like living at Portland because we didn't have anything, they wouldn't buy here. They would buy in all these other places. And I think this is what's really important to the people in Portland. We don't want this big municipality here because all of a sudden there's going to be all these cars and people and everybody coming here. If other people in other towns feel that they want a municipality in a town, they can have it in their town. You know, they can go to those places and build their township halls there. We just feel that it's going to change the quality of why we all moved here. Well, and that's why we're all so passionate about this town, is you can't find this town anywhere.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Heather. Like from our visits, we immediately understood how sensitive the village is itself. And I think, you know, we haven't done our job if we leave at the end of the day and we've kind of mucked it up for you. We want
Oh,
to.
you'll be hearing from us if you do, believe me.
Well, we can tell you we're not going to. So
You probably heard rumors. You
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
heard rumors.
No, we're not going to. We're 100% dedicated to getting this right. If we weren't, we wouldn't be having these conversations right now.
Absolutely.
And we've learned a lot tonight. I mean, Patrick and I were there weeks ago. I think in a couple weeks the town is going to look like a different town during the day now that it's getting warm and sunny out and everyone's going to be dropping their fishing boats in. So we're going to continue to come back, and we'd love to meet with you guys and hear about your unique stories about the heritage and your experience in town.
And no, anytime. I mean, everybody in this town is wide open to meeting you and to be, and I believe that we're talking our town, we're talking a 4 street by 3 street
Yes.
town, okay? It's this
The
huge
village.
industrial area.
Just to add to that, I mean, the authenticity of the place is something we want to enhance. We do not want to distract from all those qualities you stated. I mean, Portland is unique as it's a village on the water, and any seaside village I visited or any lakeside community, that is like the essence people want, and that's why they're there. Like you said, you live there because you enjoy that aspect, and that's frankly one thing that with any ideas we put forward, scale is everything.
Yeah, and we hear frustration, and
Yeah.
we hear your initial comments, but at the end of the day, we want people to feel proud of the facility, and we want you to feel ownership of the process. So that's our goal.
And you really need to think about the children and the children growing up. There's nothing right now. There's no parks right now.
Yes, yeah, it's true. It's very little. It's just
For
that
the
one site on
middle-aged
Portland.
children, like all these, we raised our children here, and then there was a big, huge lull. There was no children, and it was empty because we love children. And then all of a sudden, all these new families are moving in here with kids, and it's so energizing for us. Like, even though we're more in the last quarter of our existence, maybe, or whatever, these young families are energizing us, and we love them, and we'd love to see more parkland for them, more things for them to do. And the Gallagher House property has a lot of green space.
As you just stated, scale is everything.
Like, scale is everything, and you have to take into consideration the new demographics that have come in the last 4 years. 4 years ago, we didn't have kids here, and now there's tons of them. They're multiplying.
You're right, and we've heard that, and I think
something's in the water. They're multiplying.
Yeah, this project is that opportunity to have to affect positive change in the community, and these opportunities don't come along very often, as you guys know. So it's really important that we get it right. It's really important that we address all these demographics, the future, a growing community, and all of the comments that you guys have given us tonight.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you guys. And
Dan,
I think
one person, Joan Duncan's having a technical challenge with her microphone.
Okay.
So she is just kind of voicing her concern about people who are kind of on the periphery of Portland, who come in and who don't live right in the village. She's just wanted to note that it's hard for those people's voices to kind of be aggregated and their concerns to be identified. So,
well, I mean, it's important that we hear those voices, and that this location is in the village of Portland, but it's serving the broader township and even visitors to the village. So everybody's voice should be heard equally. Some people will have louder voices than others. Some people will have more input than others, but we're here to listen to everybody's opinion. Is that, Patrick, do you see any other important ones on the chat? Or
I think I've answered most of them as best I can.
Okay, we're running over quite a bit here. So I think for this evening, if everybody's okay, we'll bring this session to a close. I want to thank everybody for their time tonight, and thank you for taking the time to engage in this process and offer your opinions and your comments. Certainly an eye-opening event for Patrick and I. and our first opportunity to hear from the broader community in a one-on-one session. So it's a struggle because of this technology, and we don't like it either. But you have our commitment that we'll be there on site as soon as we can be there and operate in a safe manner. We could have done that tonight, we would have been there, but sadly we're not quite there yet. We look forward to working with all of you and hearing all of you and as we continue through this process. And it's our dedication to you that we will integrate these comments in a meaningful way. And if we don't, and you see it again, then you have that platform to tell us that. But we might not get it right on the very first shot, but we're dedicated to realizing what you guys want to see in the facility and a vision for the future of your village. So we have one more, I think, Mark. One more comment.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Mark.
Okay, first of all, I want to apologize for my little rant there, but I do come from the heart when I do say, it's like Heather says, we seem to have an abundance of children coming here, which is, I guess that's good for us. One of the things too is I think everybody's forgotten, change is good. There's nothing wrong with change. I think we just need to be included, and with the proper information that's given to the people, they feel included. Right now, because of this process that started a couple of years ago, people don't feel that their voice has been given. By you two gentlemen giving us some of this information, I would just like to make sure that there's a conduit between what we're saying to you goes to council, because it seems in the past when we had our organization, which our organization is Portland Improvement Committee, the former steering committee, which Heather Hines, myself, Rob, and my wife founded 4 years ago to very, very great success because of a voice. We'd like to make sure that the conduit from us to you goes to council. And what I mean by that is give us the respect and we will work with you. Change is always a good thing. And I'll just leave it at that. And I want to thank you gentlemen for putting your hearts and soul in it. Time will say what's going to happen. It's like Harold said, and Jen, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done. It seems that there's some information that hasn't been brought forward. If you can bring that information forward, like Harold and Rob had said, we will communicate with you. We will tell you what we know. We're not stupid people. We're old. We're 59, 60, 65 years of age. We can give you that information. Please let council know that we're not opposed in everything that they're saying. We just want to be included. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, certainly, Mark. I appreciate that. And like I said, we're just at the outset of this journey and consulting with you guys. So and all these voices we've heard tonight, they're not all the same opinion, but they're all valid and good input for the project. So if a decision is made, it will be justified and it will include what we've heard tonight and what we will continue to hear through this process. It's not going to be decisions are not going to be made behind closed doors. The public process will be totally transparent, and we look forward to meeting you in person and continuing these conversations.
Okay, it's not just myself. There's valid people in this community, and they do have a voice. They need to say a lot of stuff.
Yeah, certainly not just yourself, but anybody that wants to join the conversation. I think it's important, and I encourage people who are from the broader community as well to come and because everyone will be using this facility.
Yep, and you're absolutely right. And again, I want to say thank you very much. My wife and I, and I'm sure all our neighbors, feel that something is happening positive for this community. We just like to be included for it, please. And please don't tell the township, the conduit, be the conduit, because we've tried in the past and it hasn't worked. But things are moving quickly, and we need all to get, we need to move on. And, that's basically it. So, well, thank you very much, gentlemen. You guys were awesome. We drilled you, and so far you guys have passed. So far, so good.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Mark. And thank you everyone else tonight. We really appreciate all of your input. We'll generate some documents or reports from questions that were posed in the chats. We've got so many conduits of questions and information coming at us digitally, which is different for us, but we'll do our best to distill it and give it back to you so that you can use that as a measure at our next touch point to say, you know, this is what our concerns are and you're still not addressing it, or you've done a great job. So I would like to, again, just thank everybody for participating tonight. I think it was a great session, great way to start this process, and we will be in touch in the near future.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, everybody.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
Take care.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye.